Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity and Love. Incredible experts from the world over, amazing backgrounds, all types. We've had theater directors, Delta Force operator, the youngest ever admitted. Incredible how he handled manifesting, we could call it that. Healers from around the world, New York Times bestsellers, an Australian actor everybody knows if you're watching Amazon Prime these days, Sea Patrol. It goes on and on and on. So all walks of life, but each person's got a unique, very special journey. It's up to them to kind of open themselves up here and to kind of discover it and allow the universe to bring the rest in. And that's what these folks have done. They're usually heroes on the hero's journey. SHAWNE Mitchell is joining us from Washington State. She's got an incredible background. Transcendental, or just we'll call it life business coaching consultant, but with energy involved. Three-time author, Transcendental Meditation forever. Also feng shui skills up the wazoo, if I can be completely inappropriate or incorrect about it. But she's fantastic at what she does. She's super talented. And I'd like to welcome SHAWNE on the show. Consciousness, by the way, consciousness, if we say SHAWNE's name. So SHAWNE, welcome to Angels, Positivity and Love. I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much.
Gosh, Michael, what an intro. Very grateful, honored. Thank you. Thank you. And it was such a, I don't know, kind of a lovely surprise to, get your note and be invited onto the show. And thank you. I'm super grateful. And so far, fun. And thank you for that tremendous amount of clearing. You could tell that I was like completely in it. One of the first things when I started to learn about feng shui and energy clearing is that one of the ways something's happening is your body does these, in my burp, it might cough and things like that. And I yawn, and then my eyes will start to water a little bit here. And I know that things are kind of, clearing and clearing and clearing, or that something meaningful is soaking in, so to speak. So thank you for that. That was fun.
Oh, you're very welcome. And just for the audience, we took some steps for maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes ahead of time. And yawning, I think the record for yawning in my last 10 years has been about 4 or 5 hours straight for someone, but they were 50-50 with the medical stuff. They had a choice to stay or go. It's all private to them. They chose to stay. I'll just get to the end of the story on that. But SHAWNE, talk to us. When did you first become aware that the universe was a little bigger than we think? That it's not about thinking there's something else going on? Was it childhood? Was it college, university? When did it really kick into gear? Did you try to run away, or did you just jump right into it and say, let's explore this more?
I came out of the womb this way. There's no other path. I mean, I dabbled in a couple of other paths, but it was always, there anyway, right? And I went to Catholic schools, and from the get-go, I was just fascinated by, the spiritual, the unseen. My parents, I wanted to say that they sort of installed some deflector shields in a way so that some of the, I'm going to say dogma, if you will, didn't settle, so that I don't have, they call it, recovering Catholicism and that sort of thing. I'm not, quote, Catholic, but I just grew up just like, angels and celestial beings, and a notion of there's no question there's something else going on besides this. And so I was always always into that. And then somewhere around 14-ish, 13, 14-ish, I want to say, I came across Alan Watts. I had a teacher in high school who I was a psychology teacher, and I just loved that. And then I stumbled somewhere. I mean, it just started to progress in terms of autobiography of a yogi, and Yogananda, who's like one of my besties. And from there, I just started to read every thing I could get my hands on. I went to the University of Washington and learned Transcendental Meditation and got into that pretty heavily And even at the same time, I'd take my Irish Wolfhound cannabis to mass, like it was the kind of mass where it'd be in the afternoon and all the kids were there and they were singing, I was getting a little liberalized, if you will, and I'd be in the back with the dog next to me, spread out on the floor. But it just, one thing led to the next, it was, of course, a miracle. I mean, there isn't probably some books I haven't read, but, to be candid, a lot of that aspect of my life sort of lived on the nightstand, I called it, there were like piles of books on the nightstand. And then I had like a, regular life and a, boyfriend and very active, very athletic. When I was young, I hadn't quite realized it. Now I have, and partly I want to give Heart Math a bit of a shout out, because that brought this particular, what I call portal, to aligning with source, accessing states of transcendence. And that's my next book, Portals to Awakening. Can talk about that if you want. But when I was a little girl, I was very into horseback riding and water skiing and snow skiing, and was very lucky to grow up athletic, like 5 brothers, that'll do it to you. And there were moments, and I know other people have experienced this, like you were talking about surfing. You're in the green room and you are in a transcendent state. There's just, I mean, you're one with the world and the universe. I'm not, can hardly explain it, but I would have that bliss, those emotions and feelings of bliss, horseback riding or water skiing, and you're just, it's glass and you're in the flow. There's thinking and non-thinking because you're so present. And if you're good enough at it, there's a surrender, right, to the fact that your body knows what to do, and you can be in the flow with the snow if you're skiing. Anyway, so a couple of my portals in the past have been like outdoors and nature and what I would call movement. Maybe not Qigong necessarily, which I'd like to learn, but I know you understand what I'm sharing. So another fast forward, to some degree, I put maybe the spiritual life in terms of, I'm going to say, I would say calling it a career, if you will, but I got a job in Brazil and I love to travel. I got a job in Brazil. I went to Brazil right out of college, and those were times that I think that I started to get a confidence that source was with me, and that I did need to have an antenna up about things, because at 23 to go to Brazil in the 70s by myself was a little, probably not completely safe, but my parents kind of figured I was going to go to work at this research institute. And in any event, but little by little I came back, got married, had kids, moved to California, Santa Barbara, spent 30 years in Santa Barbara. And that's where I knew at a certain point in my life that I was going to have to sort of listen to the spiritual calling as the real thing in my life, as opposed to like I became a realtor, partly because I had a husband in the real estate business and it was easy, and I had little kids and I could plan. They say you can plan your own time, but it didn't really work like that. If you're successful at all, your clients are taking up all your time. But And people would say to me things about either my house, or they would talk about, and I could sense things in houses like, why does this house have such a great vibe? And that house doesn't. It had nothing to do with the decorating, some houses would be decorated like a hotel. It was so emotionally cold. And then there'd be, Granny's crash pad, if you will. And, it was charming and cozy and had this evocative, all the animals wanted to be there. You could tell, right? And I always thought, well, what is that about? And I got a little download, and I had never heard of feng shui. So I called it soul style, where your soul was imbued in the energy in your house. And I was into quantum physics, and I felt, atoms were imbued in the walls with the energies of the individual. And then, of course, there was, and so I made up chapters in my mind of what I considered to be a home with soul style, right? And someone said, well, Shawn, that's like feng shui. And I'm like, fun what? Fun what? No, feng shui. That's this Chinese thing, principles of, energy and harmony. I better learn about that. I thought I'd made this up myself. Well, actually, I thought somebody else had, and in any event, I incorporated that. And then I started to incorporate that in my real estate practice in Santa Barbara and wrote some books. And one's called Exploring Feng Shui. I should probably pull it off the shelf. Another one is called Home Sanctuaries. And then they also got picked up by a couple of other publishers and got published again with different, titles and so forth anyway. And so I did that for quite a while. And then I decided to get out of real estate. I went back to school and got a master's in consciousness studies and quit real estate. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. That's it. That's one of them. And
you got a master's?
I got a master's in consciousness studies, which was so interesting. I love learning. The pillars, I call it, to the curriculum. One of the pillars, let's call, is quantum physics and, neurobiology and, consciousness being the ground of being and so forth. That's really interesting to me. And of course, my head exploded with the little, entanglement theory and that kind of stuff. Took me a while, kind of, I get this now. And psychology, a lot of spiritual psychology, a lot of Jungian, of course, in there too. That was another sort of element to the stew. And then another one was all philosophy from the fragments and the Greeks and Kantian and perennial and Emerson, who's like one of my super faves. Love Emerson. To all the wisdoms, traditions of the world. And that was super interesting and fun too. They'd have us writing essays and we'd have to compare, say, a monotheistic religion with the polytheistic religion kind of thing. So Islam and Hinduism, for example. And one of the things that I noticed about them in that comparison is that I saw that the yoga postures are not dissimilar from some of the Islamic prayer postures. There's an author named Karen Armstrong who's brilliant at in her writings about different wisdom traditions. So, I mean, that was really super fun. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So you put all that in a mix, and that was more or less the curriculum for the consciousness studies program. I loved it. And then in the meantime, I quit the real estate business and talked to a retreat center in Santa Barbara called the Casa de Maria retreat center into hiring me. for marketing, because I was good at that and I knew that kind of business. And so I did that for almost 10 years. And that was kind of the step away from the real estate, and kind of a step away from the feng shui as well, and getting into the masters. And my thesis for the masters was transcendental leadership. And that was another one of those download kind of things. And La Casa de Maria, I'm giving you a fast kind of storyline, I guess, of sorts. La Casa de Maria was destroyed in this terrible, terrible fire and mudslide. And miraculous, well, grace, flow, alignment fell out of the sky for me. And I had been in Italy and met up with these two young Dutch guys who had just built a retreat center in Italy, and poof, a couple of months later, I'm living in Italy working for a retreat center called Mandali up in the Lakes District. Thought I had died and gone to heaven for sure. And I got a place and started living there, and I'd stand on my deck overlooking Lake Orta and just chokes me up, just pinch myself. Thank you, universe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I get to have this extraordinary adventure. And then COVID hit. And then in the meantime, principles of transcendental leadership, my thesis is kind of over here on my shoulder going, I want to be a book. And I'd be like, go away. I want to be a book. Now, have you written a book? It's just like a very solitary endeavor, right? And I'm like, go away. I don't want to know. I got other, we're not doing this. And then when COVID hit and, we were all in lockdown, I want to be a book. Okay. This is probably a good time to address that, right? And one of the fun things about writing it for me, I don't do this much talking. I would do more listening. One of the fun things for me about it that I incorporated into this book that was not in it almost, it was barely a little bit like the thesis, but not entirely, was that in the last so many years, I've also met wonderful people in the world who I consider to be transcendental leaders. They lead informed by source. They lead informed by their alignment to, I call source sort of, universal wisdom and God and whatever somebody might else want to sort of call that sense of presence. And so there's quite a few interviews in the book. Quite a few, probably like 20 interviews. And I could utilize quotes from these people about their practices that help them align and be informed by source. Thank you. That's it. That's it. Yeah, Joseph Jaworski. Well, that was if you know who Joseph Jaworski is, he wrote in like a 2002, 2003, 2004, in that time frame, he wrote books called Presence. One was called Source. One was called Synchronicity and Leadership. And his books were a lot of the source material and resource material when I was writing my thesis. So I had this like, you're my hero. And for the opportunity to come full circle, I'm on the board of this Conscious Leadership Guild, and to get him to write my foreword. Seriously, I was dancing around the room when he said yes. That was like a bold request, and God bless him because he's just a sweetheart.
Well, one of our guests actually was going to Mandali, and I guess goes periodically. It could have been the former HeartMath CEO, but I don't think it was Bruce Cryer. Somebody mentioned it on the show, and I am scratching my head trying to remember who it was. it was a male, and I'll leave it at that. I can't remember for the life of me. I think I put it in the notes though. If somebody is an astute listener and wants to comment, but it's probably going to be 2028, 2026 before somebody is like, oh no, I just watched that interview last week. But they were yelling high and low about Mandali, and I think it was a male guest, I'm pretty sure. But they got high praise for how incredible it is. And they might have been holding a retreat there or been part of a retreat. That's the best I can remember.
Yeah, Bruce, yeah, I was talking to him about coming there. That was, one of my, I guess you could say, you know, one of the things that I did was, kind of hooked up with the Science and Non-Dualities. I am Mauricio, and created a relationship there. You had a guy named Peter Matisse who does got him to come over and do a leadership thing there, created a little series, and talking to Bruce about coming there, talked to quite a few people about coming there. And oh, there's Peter. Yeah, he's a good friend.
He's been a guest on the show. He's episode 36 back in September of 2023. People can check it out. It was probably Peter that was going there. That's who it was.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I invited him.
Oh, okay.
I said, Peter, I'm over at this incredible retreat center and I'm developing a leadership series. And, you're the perfect person for this, because I was living in Santa Barbara. We were longtime friends. And I'd had him come to La Casa de Maria too. And I'd been involved with the Institute of Noetic Sciences at the time, and was the Santa Barbara community group leader kind of deal. I had him come and do some talks and so forth. And wanted to get Peter Russell to come too. We didn't get Peter yet. But anyway, Mandali is.
I love it. Okay, talk to us though about the basics for folks. There's a flow that's the heart, and a lot of cultures, religions, science, institutes, IONS, they all have different ways to describe this. Athletes know it when they're here as the flow state, but you could call it awareness, unconditional love, timelessness, no limits, blah, blah, blah. And then there's thinking. Welcome to being human. And most of our week, we can't help ourselves. We still got to do some judging, reacting, rejecting, resisting, fear, thought, worry, stress, you name it. How do you describe this and this? How else do you help people remember that it's here? Remember, you are what, Eckhart Tolle certified on the whole presence thing. And if I can press you real quick, if you can only choose one Eckhart Tolle product, is it book, audio, CD form, and which book would you choose?
Oh, that's. Whew.
I'll say A New Earth just to buy you time. And anybody having trouble sleeping at night, I've got it solved. Your brain is the only thing preventing you from sleeping. So do the book. The brain, the psyche, the intellect, the ego will have to make a decision. Do I let my poor person sleep, or do we dare read this book that's very enlightening? And you will be able to sleep like a baby. 2 paragraphs in, you're out. That's it. It's as simple. The psyche, the ego, it's not that cunning. It's not that smart. It's short-term, very like a half tank of petrol and an old crop duster is about it. And the heart is an F-16 or F-15 Eagle. We'll do that. So you have no limits, but if you want to sleep better, try reading that book. You'll get 3 paragraphs in. You'll never finish it. It'll sit on the nightstand for a year, but you'll get some great sleep. Okay, Shawn, which book would you choose from Eckhart?
Well, I think for me, I feel like it's The Power of Now. I started reading that and totally got it. It was completely like, I completely get this. And it seemed like about 2 weeks later, I'm sure it was not, but I swear this was 96-ish or something. In any event, I saw that he was going to be doing a weekend thingy at Esalen, right? And, people had barely heard of this guy. And I was on it and went to Esalen, just drove up by myself for this weekend thing. And I swear we were in one of those like large tents out by the bluff, right? And honest to God, there were like only 70 of us, if you can imagine back in the day. And we'd come in and they'd ask us to close our eyes. And then he would I swear, he just would appear. He would just appear. And Kim, who I think, this was at the very beginning of their relationship, let's call it, she was doing like the recording and so forth. Just the two of them, no entourage, none of that kind of thing. And then he would speak, and then when he took off, they just asked us to just like, let him go, don't jump up and run after him and that kind of thing. And so we'd close our eyes and poof, he'd be like disappeared. I could tell, for me, I'm going to share a little story, a couple of elements about this. I realized he had that compelling energy that made me think about how, and I'm not trying to make like, I want to be careful about, delicate about this, but when Jesus said, I don't have any of this exact, of course, when Jesus told the disciples as he was, recruiting his guys, leave your family or leave your career and follow me. I got Jesus's presence was so compelling. I don't know how else to explain it. You just could not want to be in that energy field. Eckhart was like that. So compelling. And at the end of the weekend, someone asked him if he would be willing for anybody to give him a hug. And he said yes. So I got in line and we hugged, and you wouldn't notice it if you put your hand on his shoulder or what, but in a hug, this man is like vibrating. Mm-hmm. And I walked away, and this is like, golly, we're talking almost 20 years ago-ish. And I said to somebody, holy moly, what was that? I'd never experienced anything like that. Fast forward, lucky me, I'm living in Montecito and started seeing him all the time. Mm. And, getting, gently acquainted, because I worked at this retreat center, and he'd walk, he just walked by you on the street, and I'm like the only one who's like, oh my God, there's that card, like a groupie almost, right? Anyhow, God bless him. He's the real deal for me. No ego. No ego. Just. But what you asked about in terms of presence and flow and vibration, the way I guess you could say, the way I see sort of my spirituality and my take, if you will, is that I believe that we're all aspects of source. How can we not be? The whole universe is extraordinary, and here you and I get to be in this miraculous moment on this blip of a speck flying through space, right? Even just that is just that. And I believe that God's source is expressing through these unique, this SHAWNE vessel, this SHAWNE in this environment, in this lifetime, and in this package, and you and everybody else. Source just wants to express itself through us. And I think the key thing for anyone in terms of what the calling, so to speak, is just to realize that, and to the degree possible, sort of surrender and allow source to serve through the unique SHAWNE, how she is, and the unique Michael, how he is. Takes a lot of pressure off, in a sense. You don't have to like have a lot of accomplishments. You don't have to this, you don't have to that. It's really about that presence. And so part of that whole way of looking at it for me is, and one of the reasons why I'm kind of in my chapter in the Transcendental Leadership book, there's a chapter on what I call portals to awakening. And I call it the same thing, like when Eckhart started talking recently about, doorways or gateways or whatever he was saying, doorways to presence. And I said, did you read my book? What the heck here? He talks about the same thing. And Peter Russell, I want to give, credit there. When I was writing my book, I asked him, there's different ways to contact source, right? To get in alignment, in my opinion. And meditation is a well-known way, but there's others, right? And so he and I said, I just want to kind of outline 10 categories for the book, for the Transcendental Leadership book, because someone who says, I have a hard time meditating, because it is about the silence, but they say they have a hard time meditating. Yeah, Peter's the real deal too. Peter's the real deal too, for obviously my opinions. So we came up with, of course, different forms of meditation, nature, which we agree on, movement, like we were talking about, whether it's the skiing or, someone can go to church and they're just kind of like, la, 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 that afternoon, I think of Santa Barbara, that afternoon they go surfing, they're out there and they hit the green room and they're like, no, suddenly they are, having a religious experience, let's call it, right? So, and then for me also, then I believe that there are, I call inspired writings, and for me, Emerson is one of those writers, but it could be Mary Oliver and it could be David White and it could be the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, there's some of them, when you read these things, you're completely inspired and can have this transcendent experience. And then obviously creativity and music and dance. And then there, love and relationship. And of course, there's all kinds of indigenous wisdom and even plant medicine can have. So I'm into helping people in some of my coaching. Let's help you, Michael, find the two portals that super resonate with you, right? So that you're not spending time doing something and it's not clicking for you. You're not getting that flow. You're not getting that sense of presence. The truth is, don't have to do any of those things, but that's taken the lesson a little further down the line. Presence shows up, presence is always there. I'm singing to the choir. Presence is always there. But presence, you could say, flutters more greatly in acknowledgement that it's with us. So when you could say, call on presence within, it's shinier, I guess you could say. And the sensations, even bodily embodied sensations are there. And I feel that capacity or capability, and it's really, I'm choking up, that surrender is a key to that flow state. And yet, I'm going to say one more thing and then I'll stop it because I want to hear your feedback. The thing is, it's such a paradox because we are human beings in these bodies, in this physical reality, and we're supposed to navigate this. And it doesn't mean that I don't have to pay taxes and I don't get, COVID or I don't, hurt myself, whatever. And there's tragedy all over the world. We're supposed to be taking care of each other. So the paradox is almost, to me, sometimes is like surrender, and we're familiar with non-attachment and so on, right? So there's surrender and not attachment to the outcome. And then there's like having goals, right? And having intentions and moving your life along and taking care of business. You're raising kids or you've got a partner and you've got responsibilities. and it's almost like a sailboat if you like sailing, and I love boating. So you're tacking, right? And you're watching that telltale, if you're familiar with that. And if your hands are on a wheel, right, you feel the wind, you feel the currents, you feel the gusts of the wind. You're watching how the boat is moving, and you're going to go this, right? Part of that surrender is allowing, because what I discovered, and this was like one of those, I tell presents, if you want to share something with me, please do not be subtle. I don't want a butterfly. Wham! When La Casa de Maria was destroyed, and you go through that, I don't have a job anymore. Oh no, what am I going to do? And grace fell out of the sky, and the boys from Mandali's, I call them boys, will you come and help us? And I will love to play with you guys. I'm on my way. Spirit has cooler stuff in mind than we can think of, that Shawn can think of, that's for sure. And that was a huge realization for me. And I do believe self-realization, really, that all that means is that we realize that God spirit dwells within, and we're just on this, we just have little itty bitty skills at some of these, let's call them capacities or cities, if you know what I'm talking about. And if we really had a handle on how to do that, our head would explode for most of us, because our frequency is just not there yet. We have to go in increments. So I'm gonna stop jabbering here for a minute.
And you mentioned cities. If anybody's wondering, it's Siddhi. I don't know if it's the Sanskrit word, but basically many miracles, just another way to say it. Stuff that makes your jaw drop, and it's cool. One of the guests.
Well, yeah, I was just going to let me say that they're considered the superpowers, if you will, that you hear about, levitating, or a guru's in two places at the same time, or Jesus walked on water, and things that we consider to be impossible, which, are not impossible.
We had a guest who I've spent the most amount of time with, and I'll leave it abstract. Absolutely wonderful, great background, pedigree, openness. But there was a Siddhi requested, but kind of lightheartedly, not like serious about it. Levitating, of course, was the #1 request, but we settled on a dime moving, thanks to angels. It only took a year and a half, revisiting it periodically, because your brain, your thinking, your intellect, your psyche, your ego is the only thing. Just thinking something is the only thing that blocks love, and love, like one of those Beatles songs, is all there is, or what makes the world go round, and so on. To that end, can you talk to us about, whether it's the 70s, the 80s, but definitely the 90s, 2000s, can you talk to us about how you've just seen the broader brushstrokes of either spirituality, consciousness, just more awareness coming in? How do you see, there's the big talk about the shift. Some people say the shift has happened and now there's something else going on. I totally am a blank. I can't remember what it is. But the point is, more light coming in, more openness, more consciousness, more awareness. Can you talk to us what you've seen as different flows out there? Where are we today? Where were we? Where are we coming from?
Well, in my experience, I can share that trying to think back in those years a bit, when I when I first started to come out about about the feng shui, when I was living in Montecito, Santa Barbara, I thought that I would lose a lot of my friends, that I was going to be, gosh, where's a straitjacket? Shawn's falling off the planet. Oh, well. And what I decided, what happened is all of these, mostly women, but people, and some, like one guy stopped dating me, but that's okay. But so many people that, they were looking for a place to have those conversations. And I just kind of went public with it before maybe if some other folks did. Fast forward, we didn't see words like, I think I got the soul style domain in 96 or something. What was a domain, right? And you didn't use words in advertising per se, called soul or spirit and so that's when I started to watch how yoga showed up. And yoga at first, yes, it was all about being fit to a certain degree, right? But look how it's just exploded. And out of that, I want to say out of that, but in meditation, mindfulness, when John Kabat-Zinn but started to come out and share about mindfulness, that just all those little things. And the more people, and the younger people especially, they already show up more evolved than we were. It's like an evolution. So yes, I'm seeing the transition. I really am, but I'm one of those ones that, like you, we see it, as opposed to those who are still really in fear, really in a lot of pain, really in survival. Because there's a lot that looks scary out there. In terms of the shifting, I think that I feel that the shifting is happening because people are having more of these conversations. It's becoming kind of a regular thing. We're utilizing expressions like, spirit and source and surrender and alignment. And some of the really great teachers have become incredibly well known. We hear about celebrities that transcendental meditation or mindfulness. You hear in a movie I watched, it's complicated, for like the 5th time the other night, laughing. I swear it's hilarious. And they say something about feng shui in it, and I think that came out in like, I don't know, 2009 or whatever, but started to be in the movies. I just think, and part of it too, I believe, is we have it's such incredible, is the internet and our communications. So and the other last thing I would say about it is people, because the frequencies are changing, people feel other people's vibe, even though they don't really might be recognizing it. So I'm sure you're just in the grocery store and you're going through the checkout, and your vibe is affecting a lot of people around you, and how you relate with the person at the checkout counter. Before you know it, some stranger is telling you their life story because you have this presence that's safe and loving. And they can't, it's that compelling energy again, right? And they feel like they're safe and sharing with you, and that's, people aren't seen and heard as a normal thing. And so the more the more we talk about it for schools, the more mindfulness for children.
We have a guest who's, I think, coming on a 3rd time, been on a few panels too. Paul Sugar, he's done Omega before, but 50 years mindfulness meditation, remote viewer, Stargate. But he's part of an organization that's bringing mindfulness to public schools. I think all 50 states, but especially the Atlanta school system, LA. Very fascinating, bringing it at an early age. I think it's K through 12, but the real focus when they're younger. Hey, we've reached that point in the show where I blow a little bit of sage to the guests. So this is from Texas to Washington State, but it doesn't matter where you are in the world. New Zealand, Europe, it doesn't matter if it's 2030, but if it is 2030, write an extra long comment because we're still back in 2024. We deserve a long comment. It's 6 years later in the future, but it doesn't matter. Time and space isn't what you think it is. Give yourself a break on this. I'm going to light some sage. We did this before the show. We know it works. Catch some sage. If you're already wildly energetic, you may just know yourself as a computer graphic designer, an athlete. You're wildly intuitive. You can catch the sage smoke, taste it, smell it. Ask angels, the universe, loving guides, whatever you want to call it, to bring you flowers on top of that, or even ocean smell. And I'm going to use one of these, a red-tailed hawk feather, and I'm going to blow some to Shawn, but she's already getting it. Shawn, can you describe what you're catching at your end?
Well, before I told you too, I still feel like there's some peonies, you know, in terms of the flower. And that, you know, that sort of wet sand from the beach smell.
Oh,
Not like river stones, but you know, the wet, and even sometimes when there's that little bit of, be careful about the algae, but you know, there's just this sort of element to, yeah.
and I'll blow through the microphone. If anybody wants to touch Hawaii, let go. Do something with your hands. If it's finger painting, let the paint go all over the walls. Kidding. There's no paint on your fingers. But do something crazy. Let go. And then I'll blow through the microphone. If your eyes are closed, catch a little sea spray on your nose. Let it be Hawaii, Wailea Kanapali. If you don't know Hawaii, it's okay. Just say, universe, make it exotic for me. Catch what you can catch. What will you allow for? Forget all the woo-woo-woo spiritual stuff. Good luck in any given day, allowing for a lot of fun, grooviness, and a little more surprise, excitement, joy. A complete stranger complimenting you out of the blue. It is not that easy, but that's what the brain says. It's totally easy if you let your heart do the talking and walking. So, Shawn, to that end, can I put up an angel who's joy, who's all about walking and talking joy? You'll just get a reminder on something that'll be your topic du jour here, something you can run with, or she might just have a reminder for us all. I'll put the photograph up. It's a pink ball light. I got lucky in a panic 12 years ago, started taking photos, also handed the camera to folks, but I'll remind folks that you can just see full on out the window with your eyes open. I know it sounds like a lot. And I get comments all the time that are loving and people have done it. And I get the opposite as well. Like, hey, take the meds. But I'm just saying, you'll let go and allow the universe to do its job. I love saying this to Americans. Get out of what you know, out of your head, into your heart, and let, you know, an angel, the universe do its job, period. And it seems to make sense a lot more that way. Okay, here's Joy, unconditional love figure. She's Joy. What are you hearing from her as a reminder? At year end, it could be one of your chapters of your life or something you love to teach, or just what she has for us all. Your call or her call. And if anybody wants to turn up the volume, just breathe through your mouth a little. Let the shoulders go heave ho. That's just connecting your body to the above the neck and also to all that is in and around you. Yeah. And what are you getting from Joy, Shawn?
Surrender.
Well, nice. Okay, I'll put up Charlotte as well, and then I will put up maybe Min, and then Ralph Waldo Emerson, and maybe we'll do one India figure, but get to your also autobiography figure as well. Here's Charlotte, everybody's favorite school teacher from childhood with words meant to help you expand, an angel. What are you getting from Charlotte as a reminder for us all?
Self-worth.
Yay. Min, soft-spoken professor, light waves of energy and water. And breathe, 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 breathe. What are you hearing or feeling from her?
Keep moving forward.
Nice. And unfortunately, and this is, you know, the way it is with Ralph Waldo Emerson, black and white photo, only way it's going to be. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Just a reminder on one thing, but hand off your face, just breathe, relax, and hear him come in. And what are you getting?
Wisdom.
And I have to do Carl Jung for you. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
Yeah, self-compassion and understanding.
And Plato, and then again, one traditional India figure. But Plato, you can see the old man's face. He doesn't mind me describing it that way. But if you see this photo, I'll put it against the screen so you can see nose, mustache, eyes. Here, do it that way.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Beautiful, loving guide. Very crystal clear about life stages. No hugs for him. They're sweaty. A fist pump tap on the shoulder is fine. What are you getting a reminder of from Plato?
Awakening.
Yay. And then I can never pronounce his name correctly, but he's the Orange Book and autobiography of a Yogananda, is it? I can never say it right. This guy.
Oh, I love him. He's a bestie. Paramahansa
Yes.
Yogananda.
And a reminder from him.
Love.
Yay. And very last one. We'll do Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, the one from 100 plus years ago, colorized version though. And I have a beautiful photo. This one, people can allow for a wink, a smile, shoulder waggle. If you want to catch the incense out of India and even a jungle, the highest vibration of India in your room, here's a great photo of Sai Baba. And people can put a hand up to the photo, treat it like a fireplace, but feel sparkle. And get a whoosh simultaneously down your back. Anybody needs lightening up, ask for it. You might yawn, you might get teary-eyed, you might shake a little. Some people love the body reaction. There's a movement that people, when they release, they do it. And you can get a little sparkle in your eyelids shut as well. Get geometric patterns or just a beautiful light on your eyes if you want to go for like a trifecta or 4 or 5 or 6 things at once. Catch flowers. Hear a tiger roar. It'll be the tiger on the wall behind me. The Divine Mother, the one that rides that tiger. That tiger's action on everyone's team. But what are you hearing from Sai Baba, or a reminder?
Deep knowing.
Yay. Okay, where could you just leave us with what's a good daily exercise or two that is great for grounding? Because a lot of people are pointing to the body as just already being there, fully connected, but we check out when we're up in thinking la la land. And welcome to 93% of our day. I think one angel named Charlotte said 7% less thinking is the gold medal like standard, or the gold medal for all of us. If we would just do a little less each day, week, month, it's all the same thing. 7% less thinking. That's not a lot. That's not some unachievable thing. But what's your advice for folks to slow way down on the thinking pedal?
Well, in terms of grounding, I would say go barefoot outside in the grass or the dirt or something like that, the beach or what have you. Definitely get outside and take your shoes off and be on the ground. And then another thing I would say is stop talking.
I love it. And then for feng shui in a house, it's more energy than people realize. Everything, whether it's clutter, just how they're arranging the towels, colors, plants, smells, everything. Can you talk to us just a little pep talk about it? All matters quite a bit.
I feel that one real sort of key element is, as much as possible, have the art or whatever you've got that's visual in your house be as pleasing and uplifting as possible. Not dark, dark art or to distressing certain things on TV that's just spewing. Be very careful about whatever it is. I would say that, because one of the things that I learned is that the more like joy, a party, even if it's self-care, the more joyful, loving, good vibey things, where spend time with your animal, have some friends over, all those positive energies, literally the subatomic particle level, become mixed into the walls. That's just how our metaphysical world is made, right? They will get imbued into the walls. It's kind of like people will say to me, "Oh, feng shui, pish posh." But then, I'll respond with, "Well, a church has a vibe. Would you say a church has a certain vibe? Maybe." No, well, what about a hospital? You go to the hospital. Does the hospital have its own kind of vibe? Maybe. Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about, we're going to the police station for something. Does the police station have a vibe? I said, all right. The university library, the cemetery. So, and you'll get people to like, okay, I can see how these buildings, if you will, have that. So what if you could consciously create the feelings inside your home, your boat, your whatever office, have fun with it, get creative with that, and be positive with it, because those vibrations, they kind of will go back and forth. They'll feed you and you'll feed them, and they'll feed you and you'll feed them. And the other people that come to your office or your home, you're going to contribute to their well-being. They're going to come in and they're just going to like you said, the shoulders are going to relax. You're going to feel, wow, it feels good in here. I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. And I'm going to cough up something, a personal detail, that just because you're the feng shui expert, I'm only going to maybe have one more that I've been trying to get on. I'm blanking on her name. She lives in Hawaii. She's got, that's 3 names, and her name, I'm blanking on her name, but her book's sitting on the shelf behind me. So I won't get the chance to bring this up again, but I was watching that Tom Cruise Last Samurai movie, and there's a moment where he's a prisoner going back into a Japanese village on horseback bound. And again, he's a prisoner to some samurai, but they pass through a Japanese torii. And a little voice just said at the time, this is like 10 or 12 years ago, you should kind of have one of those in the backyard. And I eventually found somebody to design it and build it. And it was
Oh,
an elemental or a jinn whose East Asian mysticism that had suggested it. Of course, I thought it was my idea, but and when people pass through it, it's the whole point of the torii is to make it sacred land. And also, as you go through, you can feel it's like an invisible force field, but you get lifted off of you, your stresses for the day. And even the guys taking it down when we had to move house, I explained it to them. They were walking through it. They could feel it. 3 guys, and they very respectfully took it down. It was really cute. It was cool. But everything has energy to it. Everything matters, but it takes a little slowing down. Could you remind us one last bit of advice? To get from here to here, it's like that, but good luck. A decade could go by almost before we realize how important it is for the self-love, the self-care, and it all is about being here, not the stuff up here.
gosh. Well, in the body, I would say breathing. If you're going to use a technique, okay, in terms of the body, I would say deep breathing. And, you can read all different kinds of, breathing exercises for grounding and relaxing the body. In terms of the head, I would utilize we're trying to get discerning about how we're bombarded with fear, and that our collective And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of, powers that be in a sense, but that collective is feeding us fear. And so intellectually, if we can get a little bit of pause in there, instead of just buying into the riffraff we're being fed. Okay, so that's an intellectual pause, suspending thought for a minute on the junk we're being fed into our minds. And then in our hearts, big self-love. How can we not be love? How can we not be love? Because we get to have, this chokes me. The fact that we are here, like I said earlier, the speck, our universe is a speck, our planet is a speck. The fact that we get to be here, this unique you and unique each person, this is how come I don't get up in the morning and on my knees in gratitude for this blip of a gift of this life experience? And to love ourselves with our foibles, and don't be afraid to tell somebody, I messed up, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, I wasn't thinking, I was insensitive. So anyway, I guess I would go a little bit of the mind, a little bit of the body, and a little bit of the heart.
I love it. And Mother Teresa once said, if you love someone, you have no time to judge, or if you judge someone, you have no time to love them. There's another quote that came from a Netflix movie like 8 years ago. I don't remember which one, but it was a good quote. In the end, love is what shows us life in different colors. Great filter to use. It allows for all. Open eyes, open heart. Can't beat it. Good luck with that, though. Only twice a week or when your watch stops, once a month. Shawn, anything else you want to leave us? Is there a mantra that you love that you picked up along the way somewhere in your travels that you just think is wonderful, you don't mind sharing?
Two, if I can. One is, please. You are equally as beautiful as the universe. The other one, and I want to give credit to Paul Selig, a channeler, whose books I've read every single one, and more than once. I know who I am in truth, I know what I am in truth, and I know how I serve in truth.
Those are good. Well, Shawn, thank you very much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. A total treat to have you here.
That's so fun. And thanks for listening to me jibber jabber for
I thought it was beautiful. So thank you again. Really
thank you. Thanks for reaching out, Michael. It was very kind of you. And I hope this, serves one person.
Yes.
Thank you for the work you do.